One of the most important and path-breaking activity in operation of airlines or running airlines is the management of the yield. So, airline yield management is a very important and pertinent topic when we look at the airline business, and hence it is an important aspect of the world of air transportation. This is the structure of the fares of the airline. You can notice the blue line where you see the per unit cost, which is reducing with the stage length on the x-axis. The costs are in the y-axis. The red dotted line is per unit yield. Okay. We notice that the per unit cost is higher than per unit yield in the smaller stage lengths, and there is only one point where there is a break even, and after that you have the profitable region, which is a very small region. So, airlines are supposed to play in this region and make the most of it, and that is why the profitable region being very small, we say that the field of airlines is very cutthroat and there are very thin margins at which they operate, primarily because of the structure of the system itself. So, yields are governed by market forces, hence the cost curve needs to align with the yield curve. Now, by yield management, you can actually look at both of them. A good yield management will involve increasing the per unit yield and reducing the per unit cost, so that the profitable region increases and the break-even point moves as to the left as possible. So, what is meant by airline yield management, generally called as YM? It's basically seat inventory control. Okay. Balancing the seats sold at each of the fare levels offered. Airlines do not sell the seats of the aircraft at the same rate to everybody. Even within the same class, let us say, of course we know that business class, premium economy and economy, there are different rates because the services offered are different, the facilities offered are different. But even within the economy class, there can be differentiation in the fare, and how many seats are sold at what fare level, that is the yield management. The idea is to maximize the revenue on a flight by flight basis within a given price structure. Now, pricing, what is meant by pricing? Charging different fares for the same level of service. You might wonder, why is it so? Why is the airline charging different fare for giving the same level of service? Why are the rates of the economy class, which offers the same facility, why are they different? Forget about facilities like a window seat or an aisle seat or more legroom, those are different things. But the seat is the same, the facility is the same, and that is exactly what is yield management. How you can use the same inventory to get more and more revenue out of it. The fare is based on the ability to meet restrictions which are imposed. Some cases, if you want lower fare for the same seat, you have to have advance purchase requirements. In some cases, there could be differences in the cancellation and change penalties. So, the same seat may cost more if you want to have more facilities like ability to cancel, ability to change at a lesser price or no price, right? And then there are some tickets which are very discounted, but they are non-refundable. If you don't show up for any reason, the money is gone. So, these are the ways in which the pricing can be created by the airline to have different fares. Why do we need yield management? In yield management, we want to determine how many seats should be offered for each fare class in a flight. Please note, this fare class does not mean business, premium economy, economy. This means in the same facility or services. Okay. So, we need to set booking limits on low fare seats, right. So, the goals of YM are to maximize revenue by management of 3 domains. What are the domains? Inventory control, control of availability and pricing strategy. Let us see these. So, the number of seats that the airline should sell is to be determined. Now, there is some leisure fare which is highly discounted, but there are more restrictions and you have less facilities. Now, if you sell more seats at this particular fare, then the problem is you lose the potential revenue that you may get from the last minute flyers or business flyers. On the other hand, you can sell some seats at full price. The problem is, if you protect too many seats at full price, you may end up facing the risk of flying empty, because you are not the only airline that is flying. There might be competition available to you, and even if there is no competition, still people are sensitive to prices. So, the number of people generally are going to travel more if the prices are lesser. But where to decide? Should we wait or should we minimize our losses to sell? That is the beauty of yield management. Now, yield management actually is a wrong notion. Actually, yield basically means total passenger revenue divided by the RPKs which are flown by the airline. That means how much revenue is received in reality divided by how much revenue could have been received or is offered. Now, RPK are the number of passengers per flight on a flight per kilometer which have actually flown, right. Now, the correct name for yield management is actually passenger revenue management, okay. And the other thing could be seat inventory control. I think this is much more appropriate. You have inventory of seats. At what rate do you release seats to how many passengers at different fare levels? That is basically yield management. So, the pricing policies of an airline, you cannot work in isolation. You have to look at response to the other airlines, or you have to look at the behavior of the other airlines to any changes that you make. Now, in yield management, we have to answer some questions. Basically, you have to understand the laws of supply and demand, and there is a sweet spot which is the intersection between the supply and the demand. Now, as the price increases, the demand is going to reduce, okay, but the quantity is going to increase. So, there is one intersection point at which you have the best value. So, where is yield management used? That is the question to be answered. Who started airline yield management? Why do we study yield management? What are the strategies in yield management? What are the risks in yield management? How is it implemented and why is it important? These are the topics that we need to study. So, where is it used? It is used in any industry such as the hotel industry, such as the airline industries, where you have certain service or commodity available and it will perish or it will not give you any revenue if it is not utilized. It cannot be stored, it cannot be kept in the inventory. When a flight leaves half full, 50% seats are wasted. If a hotel has 10% occupancy, 90% of the rooms are wasted. There are many applications and even the levels also vary. So, these are some of the applications where we have yield management. So, let us look at all of these have perishable inventory. Look at cinema theatres or drama theatres, look at stadiums, look at railways, look at tour operators, rental cars, sea cargo, hotels, airlines, all of them have perishable inventory, correct? So, all of them are candidates for yield management. So, the first thing is wherever you have perishable inventory, yield management comes into play. In some of the applications, you have fixed capacity. Now, all of them except maybe tour operators who can be little bit more variable, they have a fixed capacity, right? The number of seats in the airline are fixed. You really cannot overnight or in every, of course, you can do some changes by introducing seats with lower pitch and pushing more seats or removing them, but you cannot do it on a real time basis. Many of these airlines, many of these applications, they have advanced purchase requirement. Okay. So, airlines, hotel and sea cargo and tour operators generally go on advanced purchase requirement, others they have it sometimes. Okay. Now, the potential to apply yield management is very high when you have advanced purchase requirements and when you have fixed seat capacity which is perishable. It is medium high in tour operators and railways, it is medium in stadiums and in theatres. Now, actual use of yield management is very high or high in airlines, and you can see down the list, you will get to know. So, we notice that not every industry is applying yield management. Now, we are looking at airline industry. So, in the airline industry, we have to credit David Neeleman, the founder and the ex-CEO of JetBlue, for starting yield management in the airline industry. So, this is his quote, that it is not the events, but how you react to them that matters in life. David Neeleman is a very accomplished air transport guy. He has founded 5 commercial airlines during his lifetime. Okay. Morris Air in 84 to 88, WestJet in 94 to 99, JetBlue 2000 to 2007, Azul Brazil Airlines from 8 to 13. He is a Brazilian, so he went to Brazil in 2008 to start Azul Airlines. Breeze Airways from 18 to 21. Okay. These are 5 airlines which have been started by David Neeleman. He is also a 45% owner of TAP Airways of Portugal, which he did in 2015. Let us look at an example of his genius. I have already discussed this in another lecture also, but I will repeat it here because it is worth repeating. He observed that A320 of JetBlue was operating with 162 seats. Now, as per the FAA regulations at that time, for every 50 passengers, there was a requirement to put 1 flight attendant. Therefore, the JetBlue A320 with 162 seats, they need to have 4 flight attendants. What he realized is that the last few seats are generally empty. You are never able to fill them. Okay. So, then he said, let us remove the last 2 rows so that we can get rid of 12 seats and reduce the number of seats to 150. Advantage of that is that now you need only 3 flight attendants, and anyway the last 2 rows are generally flying empty. So, we are not going to really create any loss. Instead, that empty space can be utilized by providing a larger legroom in economy class, and he was a smart chap. So, he created some 12 rows or 11 rows in the front with more legroom than normal and began charging them extra for the comfort, and the ones on the back, they had the standard 31-inch legroom. So, 34-inch, 31-inch. Okay. Now, when you remove the seats, when you remove the flight attendant, the aircraft becomes lighter, therefore, there is a better fuel economy. It also improves the load factor because you have less number of empty seats now. All of this has led to a massive reduction in the operating costs and increase in the revenue. So, it brought the airline from red to black. Within 1 year, the airline was loss making in the 3rd quarter, it became profitable in the 1st quarter of the next year. Now, why do we study yield management? We want to protect the seats for later booking by high fare paying passengers, but we also want to ensure that we are not greedy, that we keep waiting and then those seats go empty. So, it is very important to have good forecasting and expected future booking skills to estimate. Right. Now, the average global load factor in 2019 was 81.9% as per IATA estimate. Okay. So, keep in mind that despite all the things that we are discussing, close to around 19% of the seats are going empty on an average globally. So, there is a lot of room for yield management. What are the features? Yield management allows deployment of different pricing strategies for different segments of customers. All customers are not the same, their requirements are not the same, and therefore, they need not pay the same fare. It helps maximize the revenue at a given point of time. It also helps cater to demand and sets price for each segment, each fare segment, and it involves the use of rate fences, which we will discuss in later. Now, yield management should not be confused with another activity called differential pricing. Okay. What is differential pricing? Attributing different prices to services with different quality levels, okay, like business class seats, economy class seats. This is differential pricing, this is not yield management. Okay. No, the provision of business class seats, economy class seats and provision of facilities, that is product differentiation. Yield management happens on the same thing. So, the differential pricing is equal to product differentiation plus price discrimination. Now, what are the strategies of yield management? You have to ensure that you sell the seats at different price level at different periods. This is what you do. Dynamic fair pricing comes as part of yield management. But there are many factors to be considered. Demand at various time levels, assessment based on data and based on past information. And this is a place where there is a lot of scope for AI to be utilized in the future of yield management. You have to also plan the fare levels for different demand periods, how much to charge, how much extra to charge. Look at the trends and the competitive actions. So, it is a dynamic activity. But there are also many risks in yield management. There is a capacity spoilage risk. That means you have lot of capacity, you have so many seats, okay, but in the hope that you will be able to attract high price orders, you do not give the seats, so you end up with a perishable inventory which seats are empty. Okay. So, if you turn too much of low price orders assuming that high price orders will come and it does not happen, you have capacity spoilage risk. Then you have revenue spoilage, the opposite, revenue spoilage risk. Okay. High price buyers must be turned away because we have already committed the capacity to low price buyers. So, if we do not do revenue management properly and if we start selling all the seats to the low price customers who buy in advance, if all seats are made available to passengers much in advance, you will have to give them at lower prices. So, then in the end when you have an opportunity of getting more money or more revenue from people who are last minute travelers, there are no seats available because already you have booked it. Okay. So, there are three common strategies used by airlines for yield management. One of them is called as overbooking, the other is called as allocation of fares, and the third one is the traffic management. Let us see one by one. What is overbooking? You have 100 seats in the aircraft, but you sell 120 seats. Sell more seats than available to ensure high load factors even when last minute cancellations occur. Airlines know that there are many last minute cancellations because plans of the people change, because certain things come up. So, if they do not overbook, they might end up with empty seats. Now, what is overbooking? I went to the airport with a confirmed ticket. I was told the seats are full, but what has happened is I had a confirmed ticket, but my seat was sold by the airline. So, therefore, I was given a $50 concession to take the next flight. Now, since I had a confirmed ticket, I had a right to fly in that flight, but the airline has already overbooked and sold my ticket to other people. So, they give me a compensation, they give me a small relief saying, okay, you take the next flight and we will give you 50 bucks. Now, why do airlines overbook? They overbook because they want to do revenue management. It is quite common, it is very common. Okay. And it is because of no-show. It has been found by some studies that on an average 15% of passengers do not show up, on an average. Okay. So, they do not show up for the flight for various reasons. Last minute change in plans and there was no time for cancellation, delayed in traffic, could not reach in time, multiple booking on flexible tickets. So, there are some tickets which are flexible, you can cancel them at any time. So, the passenger is not sure whether he will go on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, but because the ticket is flexible, he will book on all three and then he will cancel two of the three in the last minute because he now knows that the travel is happening on that particular date. Sometimes some passengers miss the connection because when they have a hub and spoke connection, a flight from the spoke gets delayed or the hub flight arrives late and the spoke flight has gone. you have missed the connection, and because of that there is no show, right. These are many reasons. Now how much and who does it? The legacy airlines, they go as high as 30%, okay, because they give more flexible tickets and they have more business travelers who are more prone to last minute changes, because they generally have tickets where the flights can be rescheduled at no or very small cost. Low cost airlines don't overbook a lot, because they are looking at passengers who are offering low costs, who have taken a cheap ticket, and therefore cancellations are not permitted or very expensive. So they only have 5% or so, right. Now the top US airlines, if you look at the data in 2018, 10,835 passengers were denied boarding, which were confirmed tickets, okay. So this comes to only 14 passengers in about 10 lakh passengers. So it's not a very large number, but for those 14 unfortunate people it becomes a problem, okay. 97% of the overbookings were solved voluntarily by giving small concessions or by giving facilities to the passengers. Now who are the people who are most likely to be denied boarding, or we call them as bumped, okay. First class or business class passengers are most unlikely to be bumped, because they have paid high fares and they are our prized customers. Frequent flyers of high status, because they will bring a bad name to the airline, they will talk about it and they will feel cheated. They are loyal to the airline, they are frequent flyers, and if they are of high standing, you would not generally bump them. When people travel with family, we don't normally bump. We don't want to break the family and say the wife goes in the morning flight and the son or the husband in the evening flight. We don't. We normally. So when you travel as a family, you have a less chance of being bumped, or all of you may be bumped. Who is most likely to be bumped? Single travelers. Those who are alone, those who are traveling with no other associate, they are the ones mostly to be bumped. Those who come very late for check-in, because by that time the airline has already checked in more passengers, because it has overbooked and people have already turned up, you are late for check-in, all the seats are gone, therefore you are going to be bumped. Also, if you are a low fare ticket holder, there is a bigger chance that you are going to be bumped, because you bring less revenue for the airline. So let us look at the objectives and the repercussions of overbooking. Objectives are very clear. We would like to consume our perishable inventory and we would like to go full, or as far as possible full. We want to take more reservations than the capacity, because we expect many no-shows. The repercussions are that we have loss of goodwill. Somebody will tweet, somebody will complain, somebody will make a big halla at the airport, make a big noise, right. Then if a passenger has a confirmed ticket and you bump the passengers, you have to now take efforts to reroute the passengers. Sometimes you can say, okay, go by our own flight, which is after so many hours. Sometimes you may have to go to some other airline and try to route them, right. Then many a times, if you bump a passenger, you have to provide the hotel accommodation and transport to the hotel. So there are hospitality concessions to be paid, right. And then there are volunteer inducements. This is very interesting. Many a times when you go to the airport, you will hear an announcement by the ticket clerks saying that we would like to voluntarily offer so many rupees or so many dollars to a passengers who voluntarily does not fly in this flight, who can delay their flight, because we are overbooked. So it could be, okay, $200, $500, one free ticket valid for 1 year, or some such things. Now if you are a tourist and let's say you are at an airport and you are told that we will give you hotel accommodation and you travel by the same flight tomorrow, you might say, no problem, I will just stay here, I will enjoy this city, go around and utilize the facilities. So there are many volunteer inducements, and as I mentioned, 97% of the overbookings are generally taken care by voluntary inducements. Now let us look at the number. Okay. So now you can see that there is something called as a no-show probability function, which has to be estimated by the airline, and this is calculated expected cost of overselling. So the probability of occurrence and the cost of remedial action has to be considered, and there has to be a ceiling on this to limit the goodwill impact. Okay. Now this is how you cancel with the deal with the cancellations. So, what you do is you have certain there is a overbooking limit shown there. Now, after that the overbooking costs rise rapidly. Okay. So, it's important not to overbook beyond this value. So, let us look at some points to ponder. So, can an airline sell more tickets for a flight than it is the seats available? The answer is yes, it can. Yes, they can. Can an airline forcefully remove a bumped passenger to the aircraft they boarded? Technically, it can. Will the airline's insurance policy cover liability for that? We don't know. That all depends on the policy. Now, let us say you are bumped. How much are you going to get a compensation? That depends on where you are. In Europe, you will get full refund plus return to the base airport. Let's say you travel from A to B and B to C, and B to C is bumped. You will get full refund for B to C and you will get a flight back to A. Or you will be rerouted to the destination as soon as possible, and you will have compensation which will change depending on the flight distance. In the US, the compensation is based on the duration of the delay. Like if you are bumped and you are sent in the next flight, how many hours you have to wait. Okay. There is no compensation if within an hour you get one more flight. So, if the airline has got a flight on the hour every hour, they can easily bump you and you will be no compensation to be paid by putting you in the next flight, right. The maximum compensation that you can expect in the US is $1,350. This could be cash or travel vouchers. Most airlines give travel vouchers. They give you a voucher which is valid for 6 months or 1 year on that airline, and subject to availability you can book a seat on that. Now, it also depends upon whether the flight is domestic or international, right. In India, what happens in India? If you accept the alternative flight, that means suppose the airline has bumped you and you say, okay, I am okay with the alternative flight. Then again, no compensation if delay is less than 1 hour. You might get some meals and refreshments, but if the delay is less than 24 hours, you get about 10,000 rupees maximum. Okay. But if the delay is more than 24 hours, then you get a bigger compensation and you also are entitled for accommodation and transfer. If you don't accept the alternative flight, suppose you say, no, I don't want to take your offer, then you get full refund and 4 times the one-way fare, maximum of 20K. Okay. Now, there are different schemes followed. One more is fare allocation. Sell as many seats as possible at full fare, then fill the otherwise empty seats with discounted fare that exceeds variable costs. So, we know that for every extra seat that you carry in the aircraft, there are some variable costs, cost towards providing food, beverages and some other facilities, right. So, and also as you carry more and more passengers, they will have their own check-in baggage, they will have their own hand baggage, the weight of the aircraft will increase, so therefore, there will be higher fuel cost. So, this strategy is that at full fare you sell as many seats as possible, and then when you reach one particular limit you say, okay, now we will go very liberal, we will give very good discounts so that we fill our seats. Now, here there are problems. There could be something called dilution. Now, there are some passengers who are not so much sensitive to prices. They would have paid higher price, but because you are offering discounted tickets to fill the seats, they will pay less amount. So, you have diluted your revenue. This passenger could have paid you rupees 10,000, but because you reduce the fare to 5,000, that passenger is paying 5,000 rupees. So, you have diluted 5,000 rupees per passenger. Then there is displacement. Okay. The higher price customer is rejected in favor of a low price customer. As I said, you tried to fill the aircraft with high fare passengers, and then you decided remaining seats I am going to discount. Now, there may be another high fare paying passenger, but you have rejected, and now you have filled the seats. So, this person wants to fly at 10,000 rupees, but now no seats available because you sold remaining for 5,000 rupees. That is called displacement. Then there is something called as share shift. Some passengers will move from your airline to the competitor airline because they are not able to buy a ticket in your flight, since you have already sold your tickets at a lower discount. Then there is stimulation. That means when you actually offer a very low price, actually you may stimulate demand. People who are traveling by train, they might like to shift to airline because they will say, oh, the difference is not so much and it is worthwhile. Okay. So this is a positive thing. By providing discounted fares, you might stimulate some demand and get more people than what you have usually got. In a typical airliner, that is how the seats are priced. You have the business class where you have the highest possible seats, and then you have something called a premier economy. Then you have a regular class. Now here in the economy class also there is a regular fare, then there is a discounted fare. Okay? So you can see this is the price differentiation. You have a business class, you have a premium economy, and then you have economy, but in economy also you have regular fare and discounted fare. Now, pricing and demand management model is very important to understand. This is the demand distribution function. So the demand is changing. Okay. Now, early booking is by low fare passengers who are leisure customers. Later booking is by high fare passengers who are business customers. Okay. Now, here the demand is lower than the reserved seats available. In all that purple area which is below Q, the demand is lower than what is available from Q. So, average extra seats, there is an overage cost, that is D is less than Q. Demand in the right side is higher than the reserved seats, there are shortages. Okay. Now, the next thing is traffic management. What is traffic management? Maximize the system revenue, but not only on the local segment. So, look at the big picture and try to maximize. So, this is tied to the inventory available versus the inventory which is sold out, and it can create favorable displacement. I will give you an example of traffic management. Let us say A to B, the full fare is 10,000 and the discounted fare is 5,000 rupees. Now, from B to C, the full fare is rupees 25,000 and discounted fare is half of it, 12,500. Now, suppose you go from A to C, the full fare is 35,000 rupees and discounted is half of that. Now, A to B is full, but B to C is available. Imagine a situation where the flight A to B is full and flight B to C is available. Now, what you can do is you can accept discount reservation from A to C. So, what will happen is if you look at the discounted price from A to C, it is 17,500, but the full fare price is A to B is the full fare A to B is 10,000. So, what you can do is you can bump some passengers from A to B who have paid the full price and replace them with passengers who are travelling from A to C and give them discounted price. So, you will lose 10,000 rupees, but you will gain 17,500 rupees, which will increase to your revenue. This is called as traffic management. Now, we are operating in a very challenging environment when we have airline. For the yield management, information regarding the passengers is gold mine. That is how you decide. An airline that knows about its passengers is the one that can do better yield management. Generally, there is a 50-50 breakup. Okay. So, but business class passengers may give you 50% of the passengers, but the profits are much more, because 25% of the passengers, they pay more than 2.5 times the average fare in business class. Now, the heavy users are top 5%, they normally travel in 40% of the trips. Some of them have no brand preference. 50% of leisure passengers have no brand preference, but 25% of business passengers, they have no brand preference. Now, the network can be very complex and interconnected. There are thousands of dynamic prices. Okay. Now, 90% discount prices, we see that 20% of the people, they pay less than half of the average, and 2 or 3 big companies, they get 35 to 45% off for their frequent passengers. In some cases, there could be 50% cancellations, 15% no-shows, right. So, basically what we are saying is that this kind of information, if you have regarding your passengers, you can do better yield management. If these numbers change and if you do not have the information, you could go wrong. Now, as I mentioned, AI is a very useful tool for optimizing revenue management, because if you collect data, then if you segment the data, you can use it for forecasting, optimization, and dynamically you can reevaluate and process. So, yield management can result in huge profitability. You can get almost 7% direct increase in revenue by yield management. In some cases, we have seen that yield management has resulted in 50% to 100% improvement in the profit. One airline says that we used yield management and those policies led to an increase in revenue of $500 million a year. Another one used similar systems to increase revenue by almost $300 million per year. So, it is not a small amount, it is a huge amount. Therefore, yield management is a very interesting and a very useful activity, and it is important for us to know that this is what makes or breaks an airline's profitability. Thank you.